At the start of another new season, we could not do this without there being drama on and off the track. And very excited to be making my return to Nailing the Apex. Tim and Nelson, it feels like you guys have been carrying this all winter long, the two of you. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it. I missed you guys, and I'm so excited that in a week's time, like literally, we're going to be racing. This is great. I just want to ask you first because it's been a bit. Nelson and Tim, are you ready? Nelson is shaking
there's
his head
no way to be ready with such a big regulation change.
It's a fully loaded question, Adam.
Yeah.
And we're not engineers, and actually, most of us aren't engineers.
Yes.
So we've had to become engineers.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So Nelson and Tim and I went out for a coffee. Usually those are about 30 minutes. Tim and I's turned into about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Explaining all the stuff that's changed and all that's gone on over the winter. And, we're going to have an episode a little bit later this week about some of the new things that people are going to expect and the new terminology that's coming into the sport. But for now, and this is, relatively new, there is an FIA revision to the engine rule at the center of what is a big political fight. So Tim and Nelson, I don't know who wants to take lead on this one.
Oh, please, Tim. Please,
okay,
you do
let
it.
Tim do it.
All right.
It's complicated, so try to boil it down as much as possible,
Adam.
Tim, for us fans.
I mean, listen, I got to do what I got to do here. It's going to take as long as it's going to take, brother. Okay.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Let's just go back to the winter time. Well, we're still in winter time. Let's go back to like December, January, where the reports came out. I think it was the race that broke the story. Did a great job with it. And that had to do with the compression ratios that Mercedes had allegedly been able to run when the car is on track at temperature. So instead of it being within the rules of 16:1 compression ratio, they were able to go above that when there's heat driven through the engine, which would essentially give them a little bit more power out on the racetrack. So that would have been an advantage. And from there, that started to gain steam over the next few months. And by the time we got to week 2 of Bahrain testing, obviously we had Toto Wolff have a blow up. Nelson and I were on that call in January, and he had another blow up during that week 2 of Bahrain testing. And the teams, the power unit manufacturers got together with the FIA, F1, and they basically raised their concerns, and the FIA put it to what's called an e-vote, and the e-vote basically would allow them to fix the rules so that the FIA could measure the compression ratios of each and every single car at ambient temperature, but also with on-track running heat temperature of 130 degrees, like the engine being run at that temperature. And so that e-vote was last week, and it went through. The rule has been changed. The one thing, though, that had been that we didn't see coming was just the date. The date was meant to be August 1st, 2026. It got moved up to June 1st of 2026 when this rule would be implemented, essentially. And the FIA would be able to conduct their tests when they needed to do that. So that's where we're sort of at with this engine compression ratio scenario. We'll see if that does anything or if anything comes of it. I mean, Nelson made a good point. It seems like, obviously it's always all very political within F1 and within the paddock, but this one seemed a little bit more so.
Definitely so. And the fact that it has been moved up sort of feels to me that Mercedes is confident that their engine, with or without modifications, will pass by June 1st, given the new testing method. And that's a little bit of the noise we've been hearing from Mercedes, that they are not too worried about it all. And it just feels like last year's flexi wing situation. We all thought this would put the championship upside down, and it didn't. And that definitely is on par for F1. So yeah, there's so much happening with behind the scenes, because the communique from the FIA contained a few other bits that leads me to believe that this is part of a wider discussion, and there's some give here, some pull there, maybe some deal making along the way, and that would be definitely F1.
There is a fair degree of horse trading that goes on. There's no question. Now, I uh, I wonder, guys, for just from a narrative perspective, and me being a fan on the outside, how much of this is um, uh, with, for lack of a better term, sort of like Braun GP. Like somebody's got it figured out, and the other teams aren't happy about it, and we're gonna say that they're not doing well, or they should, that they're cheating, or that they found a loophole that's not fair. And how much of this is really real, and the FIA is truly concerned?
Well, there are two sides of this coin. First of all, it's very much like Braun GP, because it was something that they found Mercedes as to be possible. They continuously spoke to the FAA about it. They put everybody in the loop. Other manufacturers tried to copy it allegedly and couldn't. And that's the moment they started to sound the alarm bells with the FIA to see if they could change or sharpen up the testing rules. That's one side of the argument. And in that respect, I'm not so happy about it, because I do like it when people push the envelope, and it shouldn't be so that all the other competitors, if they can't do what you do, can gang up on you and change the rules. However, it is also right to have an engine, a car that's legal under all circumstances and not just at ambient temperatures.
Right.
And with the Braun analogy, that car was legal at all times. It just found something in the regulation that wasn't completely blocked off. Here, we're saying the compression ratio, so the way the air and the fuel mixture is squeezed in the cylinder, should be 16:1. However, they measure it at ambient temperatures, and there's a suggestion that it becomes 18:1 at higher temperatures. And now they've changed the regulations to test them at the higher temperatures, therefore making sure they're legal in both settings. And that's a difference between, let's say, any other discussion about loopholes. This is about being legal at all times. So in that respect, I'm fine with it.
Can I ask who's leading the charge on the anti-Mercedes front?
Anti-Mercedes.
Because Christian Horner's not there. So
there's more than one. There's
Okay.
more than one, Adam. Like, I mean, for sure, Audi's in there. Ferrari would be in there. Honda definitely would be in there as well. Maybe not so much Red Bull powertrains. Nelson might know more about that than me, but I think that Red Bull was the one sort of sounding the alarm bells, because they had actually picked up, or cherry picked, I should say, some of the engine designers, builders from Mercedes, and brought them over to design the Red Bull powertrains car. And it kind of feels like some of them started talking internally, and that leaked out. Giuliana Cerasoli, who was on here last week, she was the one who actually broke that part of the story. But yeah, I would simply say if all engine manufacturers are voting the same way, then you can bet that they're all on the same page when it comes to wanting a fair competition. But again, all this is alleged, right? Like we don't know. So
yeah, and it's supposedly a supermajority, so that would mean that Mercedes got outvoted. What is it, 4-1?
4-1,
and everybody would have been on board with that. But the fact that they moved the date up seems to me that Mercedes might not have put up as fierce a fight as they might have done.
Okay. So it's probably something they believe internally they can deal with no problem.
That's been the communication to me, at least. Like, why assume we are worried about this? That's the general air they're trying to convey.
Yeah. And people at the team I talked to, say the same thing. And then, I mean, obviously, Toto has been saying that now for the last 3-4 weeks, where they haven't done anything wrong. They followed the regulation as the regulation is written, and they feel that their engine is compliant with the rules.
Okay, well, Listen, I referenced them earlier, but this is a time where I do miss Christian Horner and Toto Wolff going head to head.
He'll be back soon enough, Adam.
He'll be back
he'll be
soon
back.
enough, and I'm sure waving the flag and waving the sword in Toto's direction. But there's something about the public battles that I kind of miss here, because a lot of this is not played out in front of the cameras like we're kind of used to, right?
No, I think Toto will miss Horner
Yeah,
because I think Mackey's, with his intricate knowledge of how the FIA works and his technical understanding and his lack of needing the spotlight, might be a more difficult adversary for Toto Wolff than Christian Horner. Christian Horner, he'll understand. He knows what he's getting. He doesn't know what Mackey's is doing behind the scenes. So I'm not certain Toto is super happy Horner isn't there.
And this one did kind of get played out in public too. I mean, when I was standing over by Red Bull Racing waiting to talk to Laurent Mekies, Toto Wolff had pulled him aside in the middle of the paddock and was he was letting him
Would you
know
say he
that
was
he wasn't
animated?
happy. Pretty animated discussion between the
Passionate?
two of them.
Okay.
Did Mackey's look flustered though?
No, not at all. Like, even when
See?
he came over to like sit down to chat, I kind of said to him, like, I'm like, that looked like quite the conversation. So he was like, oh yeah, he's like, it was something. I was like, it looked like something. But yeah, he didn't seem flustered by it whatsoever.
I think he's going to be an interesting character to add, because this is a major team. He's sort of I know he was a team principal before, but he's sort of an unknown quantity to the general public. So it's kind of cool to throw a little bit of a wrench in there with him.
And for us to work with, really a quite interesting and open guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that he's in the paddock for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Now,
me too.
what we're going to do today is something a little bit special. The episode's going to be a bit longer than usual, but I have enlisted Nelson and Tim because we're going to do a full season preview of every single team. And we've got 11 teams this year, so it's going to take a little bit longer. But, we want everybody to get, if you got a team, we want to have Tim and Nelson sort of weighing in on where they're at. And there's going to be a 10-minute timer. And when we hit 10 minutes, even if you're mid-sentence, I'm going to bust in there and shut you down, boys. Okay, so get ready.
He does this to a commentator. It's a joke.
I like being the dumbest guy in the room and telling everybody what to do. This is my role, and I want to start with, and I'm going to start the timer now. Aston Martin, and I'm going to start what we think with probably the lower teams first, and then we'll make our way up. Now,
10
Aston
minutes
longer
for
than
Aston.
10 minutes. We're going to need longer than 10 minutes.
Well, you got 10. Guys, this is a power unit issue. This entire team, it doesn't matter that Adrian Newey's here. It doesn't matter that they've spent all of this money upgrading the facility, bringing in new people, the best tech they possibly could, the full, remember last March when they announced Newey, they had the whole, the whole reveal and everything. Aerodynamically, who cares how good this car is? The power unit just isn't there, right?
Well, okay, I'll boil it down and then Tim can jump in.
Okay.
They started late on the engine because Honda had turned its back on F1 and then retraced their steps. So the engine is late. The engine has developed, the internal combustion engine has seemingly developed a fairly paralyzing, what's the word I'm looking for?
Tremors, shakes.
Yeah, shakes. It's got the shakes, vibrations. That's the word. It's basically shaking the hybrid component of the Honda engine apart. That's a major issue, and yes, that will hold the team back for months. However, when Adrian Newey came in March, he was late as well. He then tore up a lot of the work that was done on this new car. So this car is apparently overweight. It's underdeveloped, the chassis. Its handling characteristics aren't there, and they can't develop it because the engine shakes itself apart. So it's not just a Honda issue. This entire baby of Newey and Honda, this Aston Martin Honda, is late on all fronts, is underdeveloped, and is going to be a major headache for the team.
I'll pick up on that.
Great
not only
start.
that, I mean,
Great
not only that, like we've spoken about on here before, the gearbox. I mean, Aston Martin building their very, very first gearbox. The last time this team built a gearbox was 2008, and that's, like I keep saying, that's when they were Force India. So that in itself is a massive issue, because teams will be relying on the gearbox to help them harvest energy, to help them get energy back into the battery. So if that's not working with your hybrid system, then this whole sort of chain falls apart. And if it falls apart, then you're not only trying to figure out, okay, our engine is shaking so bad, it's breaking components within the MGUK and the battery, but we don't know what else we need to do with the gearbox to make it work with the hybrid components. And so if you introduce a new power unit, then you have to be working in conjunction with whatever the new gearbox is going to be. And the fact that they're making this in Japan and Aston Martin is building a gearbox over in the UK, that doesn't make things easier either. You take a look at what Red Bull Powertrains had done in building out a whole new factory, which is close by the campus. Like, if they need to start putting pieces into the car or working with a new gearbox and putting that together with everything is there. Everything is not too far away for them to do that. Now you've got to take this thing apart. You got to ship it all the way out to Japan. Who knows how long that's going to take to get there. So not only, like Nelson had said so well, are they behind on all of these different aspects of this and being late to the party, like Honda just being late to the party and getting this thing started. Their old power unit facility where they were building their old F1 engines, they cleared that out. There was nothing left in there. They had to restock all that stuff too. They had to hire new people. And this is a regulation they wanted. Mm-hmm. So they're really, honestly, like this is going to take a very long time for it to get up and start running properly. And if at all. But if you think back to the first time Honda got into the turbo hybrid Formula One era, 2015, I mean, it's not as bad as that. Like, that was bad. And then they had to do like a whole new reconfiguration of that power unit in 2017, which led to like a ton of DNFs and failures and things of that nature before they could figure out how to get the most performance out of their new redesign. That in itself, again, took years. So yeah, right. We're not looking at something that's going to be done in the snap of a finger. We're looking at something that's going to be done over years.
And Helmut Marko warned Honda about this when Honda did an about face and said, okay, we're coming back, we're redoing everything. He was very angry because the Red Bull team had heavily invested to soften the blow of Honda leaving. And then they came back and he said, well, they're going to be miles behind. And the worrying part is that it got progressively worse as the test went on. And even just looking at the car on downshifts and turn in, it just looks undercooked on all fronts. And when you're baking a cake, either you have the right ingredients or you don't, and you have the patience to bake it right. And neither seems to be in place right now.
So if you're Lawrence Stroll, what are you telling the team to do? Like, what's the solve here, guys?
Find me a buyer.
Wow.
Okay. Holy smoke. Really, Nelson?
Well, listen, you've said goodbye. No, but you've said goodbye to Mercedes, which is now the leading power unit. You've poured money into it. You've put Adrian Newey in a position of power and responsibility, and also showered the guy with compliments and given him all the attention. They've done a lot of myth building, but now they have to figure it out. And will the people there have enough patience? And I'm saying this will take more than a full year to be where they think they should have been at the beginning of the program, in terms of latching on to the back of the top 4 teams. Will they have the patience to do this? It's another false dawn.
Okay. Let me ask you another question, boys, because we got about 3 minutes left in this preview. Can they finish a race right now?
No.
I don't think so. I think it'll be difficult.
Do you run both cars in Australia anyway, take what you can out of it, and you know they're not gonna finish.
You have to.
100%. Have
Yeah.
to.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you got to get the data. Like
Any lap
think of it,
will be valuable to
Yes.
the engine department.
Okay.
Yeah. Think of it this way, Adam. Like the amount of data and information that Mercedes, Ferrari were able to get during testing, like Aston Martin's not even anywhere close to that. And they'll never get that amount of track time back. And that is going to take them several Grand Prix just to reach that amount of mileage, that amount of data collection that these teams were able to get in 2 weeks of testing. So now these teams are already have gotten that 2 weeks worth of testing. That's how far you're behind. So now not only are you trying to play catch up under the mileage to try and collect the data, you're also now very well behind in terms of development and bringing performance to the car, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because if the engine's not really working very well, then what's Adrian Newey supposed to do with the car?
Yeah.
Like if you go and redesign your entire, just the entire engine package, make it longer, whatever it is you need to do to it, then Adrian Newey's going to have to go and rebuild part of the car, right? Like it's these two things, they don't work together. You always build your car first, and that's the thing that the engine gets based around. Not anymore though with this regulation. So for Adrian Newey, like I don't know what he can do. Literally, his hands are kind of tied at the moment.
And there's another part of that. You need to run to also show how bad you are, because Honda will be relying on some additional support from the FIA to be able to change stuff on the engine earlier than the regulations now allow for. There's a provision in the engine regulations where if you're behind at a certain point by so many percent points of performance, you get the ability to develop the engine a little more. They'll be pushing to do that earlier, so you have to run. Otherwise, you have no data to convey to the FIA. Plus, they will not look favorably upon you if you start missing races. So they need to be there. They'll need to really bite the bullet. They also have to just show up and show how bad they are, and it's going to be painful.
Yeah, and so Adam, how much time we got left? Because
you got 20 seconds, but I am going to allow extra time on this.
No, it's okay. So I'll do it real quick. Like Nelson had said, if you can prove to the FIA that you are more than 2% behind, 4% behind, then you get more tokens to allow you to build more into your power unit for the next races.
I am going to build in something. I'm going to call an audible as the host, and I'm the one that makes the rules. I'm the FIA today, right now on this one. Guys.
Can we do an e-vote?
Yeah, I know. We're going to do I know I would get outvoted. That's why I'm declaring myself dictator. The reason I want to ask this is because I think it's important. Guys, this is the same engine company that cost McLaren Fernando Alonso, arguably, right? Back in the day, among other things. And we saw that, I think, play out in the first season of Drive to Survive. Fernando Alonso is getting up there. Does he finish the season with Aston Martin?
Oh, we've talked about this. I thought he might get out early, Tim. I don't think you agree with that. But whatever, it must be déjà vu for him.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I at least asked the question. Now, let's get our predictions in very quickly. Aston Martin, where do you guys have them finishing? There's 11 teams. I'm keeping track here. Where do you have them finishing? Nelson?
At the end of the season, constructors?
Or
Melbourne?
Constructors 11th, end of the season.
10th.
10th. Oh, yep. Not 11th. Okay. Yep. Tim, where do you have them finishing?
Yeah, I'm with Nelson. I would say 10th.
You say 10th? That's interesting. Okay, that's your Aston Martin season preview. We're going to move on. Now, let's go to one of the brand new teams on the grid. And this one is the brand new team with a rebrand. We're talking Audi with Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto. And, they had a really strong finish to last season. It's very clear that Jonathan Wheatley's had a huge impact on this team going into this season. And we know that they're not bringing their own engine yet. Where do these guys actually stand? Are they a team on the ascent? It's a big, deep breath right there.
Shall I go first, Tim?
Yeah,
no,
go, Nelson.
I mean, look, there's a lot they need to work on. Like I would say for I would say for Audi and Nelson, you were at testing as well, so you and I have talked about this before, but their power unit engine that needs some work. It needs quite a bit of work. I mean, you can hear it out on track. Not only that, the car looks heavy. Like it does look really heavy
And cumbersome.
Yeah, cumbersome is a good word. I think I called it a bathtub the last episode.
Oh my gosh.
But listen, look, like that doesn't mean that changes can't happen. You know, that doesn't mean that the changes can't happen quickly, which they can, right? Like the development rate that we'll probably see with this team, I think, will be quite high. With Jonathan Wheatley and Mattia Binotto running the show there now, they've done a really good job of, I think, just getting this team as ready as it is right now. Like there's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with this team to try and get this whole production together and to the racetrack. Like they're not building the car and the power unit together like on site. Those things are getting done in two different countries. Like that's not an easy thing to kind of to do. So in the future, if this is something that Audi is, really in for the long haul, then maybe this is something to revisit with either making an engine facility where Audi is based out of, or the old Sauber facilities, or they just move everybody over to where they are now, building the engine. But that being said, I think that for this team, for this season, I think they're in a good starting position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, had you asked this before the final 2 days of testing, I would have been extremely negative.
Okay.
Simply because the Audi feels raw, unfinished, a blunt object in many ways. But Jonathan Wheatley cut a very, let's say, confident person in the first week of testing after we spoke to him at the end of the first week. And he said, our job list is so long, but we'll get it done. And by the end of the second week of testing, that car started to get transformed. They found a sweet spot in terms of the setup. Their long run pace was incredibly strong. They were nipping at the heels of maybe the fourth team on the grid for that long run pace. And the team and the drivers started to look a lot happier. I agree with Tim. The car looks heavy. The car looks unrefined. But those are issues that during the season you can figure out. They're not as fundamental as, say, the issues that we spoke about with Aston Martin. It will require a new chassis if that car is indeed overweight. But come the second half of the season, that will have happened. And if they are showing the performance they are in single lap speed, because I think they were okay getting into the 33s in Bahrain and figuring out their long run pace, then I think they're on the right track. But Bahrain is a snapshot. It's a very particular track that goes for all the teams. Ranking them based on solely what we've seen in Bahrain is difficult. But what I like is the upward trajectory. They are starting to figure things out. And you're right, Adam. The team as Sauber last year performed miracles. They really did well. And I think they've taken a lot of that momentum, but they've got the added challenge of developing their own power unit this year. That engine, they feel is okay, but it just feels unrefined yet.
Okay. And yeah, so I misspoke at the beginning of the segment. Yes, Audi has it this year. From the reports I read, it was more powerful than they expected. Does that make it, I guess that makes it better than Honda's, but is that unit better than anybody else's, or is it kind of
They think it is.
They think it is. Okay.
They really think they've got the third best engine, most powerful engine on the grid, but power isn't everything. It's utilizing and harvesting engine, the energy. That's the second part of it all. And I just think the people at Audi are so well versed in what this engine needs that they'll get on top of refining systems. It's all about refinement for Audi.
This isn't like technology that Audi doesn't know anything about, right? Like they know a lot about this type of technology, right? They've really done a good job of perfecting it and other things that they've done and participated in. So, even with these regulations, I think one of the reasons we're probably not getting harvesting from the front axle is simply because that's something that Audi would have been really, really good at. And a lot of the other teams may have been chasing after Audi to begin the season because of that knowledge and development. So, I mean, Audi doesn't get into motorsports unless they think they're going to win. And they also have that mentality that when they enter motorsport, they enter it to be the best. And that means that this is going to be a very, very good team. It's just starting off at the moment now where they're just trying to figure it out. And where do they go next?
So then,
sorry,
go ahead, Nelson. No, please.
No. What I was going to say was they've cut a lot of different programs to make this work financially.
Yes.
So they've got all their eggs in the F1 basket, basically. And I agree with Tim. Once they commit to something, they don't let it go easily. So I'm quite optimistic.
In terms of driver performance, and we got a couple of minutes here on Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hulkenberg. You know, what are reasonable expectations for them throughout the year? Once we answer that question, we'll get to our predictions. But you know, I know with Nico, he's a veteran driver. You're trying to get all the feedback you can from him. He also puts you in a good spot qualifying wise. Gabriel's going into his second season, had some really bright moments last season. How are they going to judge these drivers?
Bortoleto is the one who's going to shine with this regulation set, whether it's early on in the season or not. But I believe he is one of those kids that has all the tools in the toolbox to make it work with what you need from this very digital way of driving without the seat of the pants feel. And that's where he's going to excel. This kid is super bright. He's so clever. He's measured. And he knows that he's in a good position where he is right now. I'm very impressed by Bortoleto.
Yeah, he's a star in the making, in my opinion. I think what I saw from Gabby last season was remarkable for a rookie to come in and be challenged like he was on a team that, I mean, the year before that was finishing dead last and could barely score a point. So I think for Bortoleto, I mean, he is, I believe, going to be one of those stars of Formula One. That's how good he is. But for Nico Hulkenberg, this is the right guy to have on your team at the right moment. And why I say that is because of the knowledge that he brings. He's been through different iterations of Formula One. He understands how good teams should function and information should flow and how the driver needs to give the feedback that he needs to give. And so I think for Audi having Nico Hulkenberg for this season, and we'll see what happens for next year. We'll see what the performances are like. I still think he's, extremely, extremely fast driver. He's a very good qualifier. I think having him in your stable is very important at a time like this.
And let's not forget, he won Le Mans in a hybrid Porsche.
That's right.
He knows about this technology, whether or not it's exactly the same. That's not the point. It's more the mindset.
Yeah.
And he's happy to be in the seat. He's not going to throw his toys out of the pram. He's such a professional, and they love him in that team.
That's awesome. Okay, now we got about 40 seconds left. Gentlemen, I want to ask you about your predictions for Audi this year. At the end of the season, and again, this is just constructors only. We're not talking drivers. Where do you have them finishing? There's 11 teams on the grid. Where does Audi finish?
6th.
7th.
6th. Oh, 7th. Okay. Okay, those are some that would be, I would think, incredible scenarios for a team that's looked a little bit lost the last couple of years.
But Adam, I don't know how you're approaching getting to the teams. I would have, if we were going from like selection, I would have went Aston Martin and Cadillac, and then I would have done Audi a little bit later, because I think both Nelson and I do believe that that's a team that is going to be, they're going to be scoring points here. Like they probably will score points in Australia.
Well, it doesn't need to be in sequential order. It's actually kind of perfect that it went that way. I love a good surprise. And remember, they were near the bottom last year, so it was worth bringing up. Now, the next one I'm going to look at here is, it's funnily enough, Tim, you mentioned it, Cadillac. Let's talk about Cadillac. Brand new to the grid, and you expect new teams to be bad, right? That's just kind of the reality of this sport. And it's rare that you see an expansion team at all. But to be completely brand new and setting everything up, putting the team together, finding the talent, building everything, It's all kind of come together really well on the marketing side for Cadillac. Two great drivers, lots of veteran help. Both have been on world championship winning teams. Let's talk about Cadillac. How did they look in Bahrain? How did the testing go for them?
So I think what is fair to say is that they are not bad, but they are slow. And that's exactly where we thought they'd be. Maybe, I think, if I'm honest, I would have expected them to be a lot worse than they are. They look like a proper, competent, safe Formula One team. They've done, Graham Loudon in particular has done an extraordinary job to get on very short notice, like a couple of months, a team together that works as well and that looks as competent as they are. They got a lot of mileage. Arguably, they could have gotten a lot more. But that car is heavy, is low on downforce because they went safe. They developed it early. They brought the chassis out in November. So there's more to come from that team. Will it challenge for points? No, but I was so impressed by the way they turned out in Bahrain. And it's a bit of a feel-good story. I think everybody's rooting for them. That helps. But we know how bad new teams can be. And this is completely different to my eyes.
Tim, your thoughts?
I thought this team was going to be a failure straight out of the gates. I didn't think they were going to make it to testing, and I didn't even think they were going to get 2 cars to the grid in Australia. When I saw everything in Silverstone last year, I think they've done such a great job. I think having Graham Loudon has been the difference maker. Mm-hmm. A man who's been through Formula One. He's been through with teams. He knows, he understands what it takes. He understands like what that leadership position looks like and what the leader needs to do of a Formula One team. I think having that backing from TWG, from, a little bit from GM, obviously, is huge. That is, I think, one of the most important things. Having Dan Towers be a part of that operation has been extremely, extremely important. I mean, if it wasn't for Dan, then this 11th entry is not on the grid. And outside of that, when we take a look at Australia, what's going to be interesting to me is how do they get by with fielding both cars? This is something they haven't done yet, right? They've fielded one car, but they haven't fielded 2 cars. And I said this on our last podcast, but when I sat down and spoke with Graham about this, he's like, that's one of the things that scares him the most is dealing with 2 cars on the grid for the beginning of Australia. It's a totally different beast, Adam, than what they were working with during testing.
Well, double the work, right?
100%.
And 2 different sets of problems, very likely. They're 2 different cars.
100%. But the amount of communication that now needs to go on, right? You're now not running just one crew inside of your garage. You're now running 2. Plus, you're running another like internal group back at headquarters for setup, simulation, race simulation. What do your strategies look like? What does the strategy department look like? See, these are all other things that this team needs to really suss out and see where those strengths internally are and where those weaknesses are. Because if you remember back when, like Ferrari, I want to say 2022, I believe it was, or 2023, I'm getting my years mixed up, but Charles Leclerc was pretty much in line for the victory, and strategy really failed him in Monaco, like really failed him. And so it's stuff like that, right? Like when you're on pace, maybe to score a point, like your first ever point, but your strategy department in a way fails you, then, those are other things that this is a team that has to build out. I really am impressed though with, the comms department as well. I know as sort of cheesy as that is to say, but in terms of like communicating with the team, it's been one of the more easier teams to really talk to, get information from. And, Yeah, I think they've done a great job on that department, and also messaging as well, because Nelson and I, we have to deal with team messaging and things of that nature, and I feel with what they've got going on there, it's been pretty good that way.
It seems that they are very aware of the scope of the challenge, and they're not running away from it and not shying away from it, but they're also not using it as an excuse, but they're just getting on with it, and they know it's going to be tough. They know they're going to have a tough couple of years, but they've got to start somewhere. And as far as starts go, this is such a strong one. I hope they can develop the car. That'll be another challenge, developing parts when they're spread out over multiple bases. If you think teams like Aston Martin and Audi have it bad with multiple bases, the Cadillac team is really spread out in a way you don't normally see in F1 anymore. But that's all temporary. But yeah, Valtteri Bottas looked happy. Yes, the car looks heavy and difficult to drive, but it wasn't too slow. They were nipping at the heels, and I'm fairly certain it'll take a while for Aston Martin to overtake them in terms of pace. It is just solid, and they've tried not to take any risks, and so far they've taken a lot of good exits on the road to where they need to be, but the hard work starts now.
So Valtteri and Sergio, I want to talk to you guys about those guys before we get to our predictions. We got 3 minutes here. Valtteri and Sergio are both guys that are used to being frustrated. Obviously frustrated by otherworldly generational teammates, but also, I mean, Valtteri, was with Williams with some good and some bad times. He obviously had some good and some bad times with Sauber as well. Sergio was the first one to raise the flag, the alert sign about the Red Bull car and the direction they were taking, and nobody listened to him. How do you think they'll handle the frustration of this challenge? Because we can wax poetic about how great their attitudes are, but these are race car drivers, and they want to win.
The race car drivers that had no seat.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's a great point that the Nelson makes, because I think you're going to see a different Sergio Perez. You're going to see a different, like, Valtteri Bottas, even though he wasn't that difficult to deal with anyways. But I think you're going to see two drivers who understand the privileged position that they've been put into. Getting back into Formula One is not easy. It's just, It's impossible. And now that Sergio's kind of got this second chance, he's going to treat this much differently. I just from people I've spoken to about it, his attitude coming in, it's different from when he had left. His attitude towards taking things as seriously as he did when he was at Red Bull Racing, but not only that, maybe taking things even more seriously than when things were going pear-shaped at Red Bull Racing for him. And so I think for the fans, yeah, you're probably going to see a much more jovial, open, I would say, of a Sergio Perez, and you're going to get the same old Valtteri Bottas, that's for sure.
Nelson, what do you think?
I think they're going to be very happy to be there early on. There will be frustrations because they're also winners, F1 winners. But the alternative is to not race. And a lot of these F1 drivers are addicted to F1 in a way that they're oblivious to other forms of motorsports. And I just think if you embrace the challenge, you see victories in every little thing. And if you keep that mindset, it could be quite an enjoyable process for them.
All right, prediction times, gentlemen. If if we knew the results of the constructors right now, where will Cadillac be 24 races from right now at the end of this season? Tim, what do you think?
11th.
You have them in last place, okay? And
well,
Nelson,
but I'm not like saying they're going to suck. I'm just saying that it's a competitive season, obviously. But I think for Cadillac, I have a feeling they may score some points this year, and I think that's all you can ask for, really. If you're this team, you have to remember, like, they literally just got their entry into Formula One, and to have a car this sophisticated out on the grid doing laps is very impressive.
Nelson, what do you think?
I agree with Tim. 11th, but a very competent 11th.
Okay, that's a lot more positive than I was expecting for a brand new Formula One team. Let's move on to Alpine, because Alpine they're an interesting outfit. A few years ago, they seemed to be on the rise. They were, I think they finished fifth in the points. They were aiming to get into the top four. They really wanted to be a player. And of course, part of the issue that they've had is their corporate overlords at Renault. They've wanted to run this team like it's part of the corporation. You can't run a race team that way. They've now abandoned the Renault power unit. There are rumors about a potential sale or Christian Horner coming in or. But we're talking about a team now with a Mercedes power unit and two pretty competent drivers, it seems like. Should Alpine fans and people working there be positive about this season?
I think they should be positive. First of all, Tim, is Adam our corporate overlord in this situation? That's the first one.
Yeah, probably.
What struck me by the Alpine is how secretly innovative that car looks. It's got a bunch of funny, maybe even very French innovations on it. It's just they've done things slightly differently. However, the team is fairly happy with what they got in Bahrain. Car looks quite responsive. And there are people in the paddock that think they could be best of the rest. And the test didn't look like that. But mind you, last year we left Bahrain thinking, well, Alpine looks like sixth best, maybe even fifth best. Mm-hmm. So Bahrain can be deceptive. But there were a lot of positive noises coming from the Alpine team.
Yeah, speaking of innovation, like Nelson makes a great point. Like you look at some of the other teams' straight mode and what they were doing with the front and rear wings, and then you take a look at like what Alpine had done with their innovation and what they did with their rear wing, and it's totally different from what anyone else is doing, and nobody knows if that's the right way to go with that innovation or if it's not. They don't know if that's really going to work out, but the team took a risk on that. This is a car I think that they can be confident in building performance out in. This is a car that they've spent a long time on. I think they've done a really good job with it up to this point. Like Nelson had said, having Mercedes power behind you is not going to be a bad thing.
And the gearbox.
And the gearbox as well. The rear end of this
Mercedes
thing as
gearbox.
Well.
Yeah.
Yes. So having those things is huge. That is such a big part of this formula. Like the car is, I don't want to say it's an afterthought, but it's not as important as how important like the power unit and things of that nature are going to be. And so if you're Alpine, you have to be pretty confident heading into the season. It's not going to be like 2025 and that car that Pierre Gasly just wanted to get rid of and say goodbye to. He didn't want to see it ever again. This is a totally different direction for this team. And yeah, I think there's a lot of positive noise happening behind the scenes there.
What I'm afraid of is the chaos. When does chaos ensue? Because we know Flavio thrives on chaos, and if a driver makes a few mistakes, and we know Colapinto will always be in the hot seat there, what happens then? What if more people leave the team? What if indeed Horner comes in and brings a bunch of his own people in? How does that change the dynamic? This team is not finished developing itself, rebranding itself. So it just feels like there's so much potential, but to be honest, it has always felt like there's so much potential with this team. And I wonder if this is the year they actually make good on that promise.
I mean, it is the second biggest car manufacturer in the world. You wonder how a Renault-backed team could have had as many issues as they've had, but it seems like chaos has been sort of the name of the game basically since Oscar Piastri was poached, and probably before that too, but it was a little bit more out in the open. And I want to talk to you about the drivers, because there were some rumors about maybe Yuki Tsunoda was the guy that they were going to look at until that Franco Colapinto extension was announced. How is Flavio, and potentially if Horner comes in, how are they going to judge success of these drivers? I mean, I'm assuming from what you're telling me, gentlemen, that this is going to be a team fighting for points.
More so, I think they'll be looking at an occasional podium if things fall their way.
Wow.
I think Nelson's right in that respect. I think also like with Colapinto being on, from what I've heard, a bit of a short leash, like there's not many mistakes that he can make, right? And Yeah, he brings some backing and some sponsorship from a lot of his Argentinian sponsors and things of that nature. It still won't be enough if he's having the same type of a season as he did last year. I think the great thing for Colapinto for this season is he's gotten testing under his belt, which is huge, and it's so important. Yeah, and it's so important for drivers to get those 2 weeks of testing. I think for Colapinto, getting those 2 weeks of testing, I think that's going to give him a lot of confidence entering this season. I just think for him, it's like Nelson had said, the benchmark is Pierre Gasly, and you got to keep up with Pierre Gasly.
And he was awesome last year. Let's not forget this. Gasly had a standout season last year. He had a top 6 season. So difficult for Colapinto to keep up with that. But if he can, good for him. And then he's quite secure in this pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So then I want to talk about Gasly then, because obviously he's been sort of an unsung hero for a long time in Formula One. Obviously he has the one win, and he is one of the most likable characters in Formula One. Everybody likes Pierre. But one guy that seems not to like him is Christian Horner. At least the way he drives. Maybe that was a Helmut Marko thing. Maybe it was a Christian Horner thing. Maybe it was both. But when he was at Red Bull, something went wrong. And I'm curious about if Christian is coming in, and we still don't have confirmation of that, does that change Gasly's spot at the team?
I don't think so. I think when you're having success, I mean, the thing with Horner is essentially that the driver is performing, then he's going to be happy, right? If your driver continues to perform, team principals will always be happy about that. They'll never take a driver out of a seat if they are performing. So for Gasly, all he needs to do is just keep doing what he was doing last season. And like Nelson had said, he had a remarkable season in a car that just was not good whatsoever across the board. I think for Christian Horner and the story of him buying out Otro Capital and things like that, it is something that we have heard a lot about over the last few months, and it is something that is percolating in the background. But if Christian does come into Alpine, it's not like he's going to have like a major controlling interest of the team. He's going to have a big percentage, but it won't be like the key percentage that's going to make all the changes and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, Gasly is not the driver he was at Red Bull. He's come along so well. He's learned so much. He's so experienced, and he knows this is his big chance. Driving with the Mercedes power unit to get his career back on track. So I think it'll gel well.
Okay. And at what point, if Alpine does not yield the results perhaps that are being suggested here, does Flavio come under some sort of microscope, or is that just not on the cards?
No, dictatorship in this case.
Okay.
I think he's got so much leeway. I think he's preparing the team for sale. To be honest, I think they've been adding value and also taking away stuff that might make a sale difficult. If you still had the engine facility, then a sale would be very difficult. I think they're just getting ready to move on to the next phase. And he's got skin in the game, because I'm pretty sure whatever he sells the team for, he'll get a slight percentage of this. And that's apparently the deal he's made with Renault and Alpine. So I think he's on solid footing there. The thing is, you just never know what you're going to get from him. But he's officially not the team principal, so he won't get the tough questions, nor will he answer them anyway.
Right. He does have a way
he's going to pull you aside next time he sees you, Nelson.
Just to catch me first.
Okay, so we got enough time for some predictions. Alpine this year, really positive outlook here from you guys. It was most positive, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years. Where do you have them finishing if the constructors' standings were to be determined today?
6th for me.
6th place. Wow. Okay. Tim.
Well, Nelson's a little more generous than I am. I'm going 7th.
7th for Alpine and Tim. Gentlemen, thank you so much for that preview.